I never thought words could physically hurt like a punch to the chest, sharp and breath-stealing, but that day, they did. My daughter, my only child, the person I had once carried for 9 long months, the girl whose scraped knees I had kissed and whose nightmares I had chased away for decades, looked me dead in the eye and said, "The best gift would be if you just died." It wasn't a joke. It wasn't sarcasm. It wasn't a heated moment said in anger. No. Rebecca said it calmly, coldly, like she was telling me the weather. And the worst part? She said it on my 70th birthday. The day had started quietly. I remember standing in front of my bathroom mirror that morning, brushing my thinning grey hair and telling myself not to get emotional. Birthdays weren't really something I celebrated anymore. After my husband passed 12 years ago, most years felt the same: quiet mornings, a simple breakfast, a walk around the neighborhood for exercise. But this year, something was different. Rebecca had actually invited me over. She had texted 2 days earlier saying, "Come over on Saturday. We should talk about the funding for the house project." I knew what that meant. The house project wasn't hers. It was mine. Or rather, something I was paying for. 2 years ago, when Rebecca and her husband David decided they wanted to upgrade from their 1,400 square foot starter home into a brand new custom build, they somehow assumed I would write a check for most of it. And I did. Because that's what parents do, right? You give. And give. And give again, hoping your child's happiness will somehow be worth the sacrifice. Over the years, I paid off her student loans. I covered the down payment for her first home. I helped with private school for my grandkids. I even co-signed a loan when she and David wanted to start a boutique business. Somehow, I became more of a walking ATM than a mother. But I could. And I did. Because the moment your child wishes you dead is the moment you finally realize you've given everything and received nothing in return. The drive home felt like a blur, streetlights stretching into long, ghostly lines across the windshield, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I wasn't crying. Not yet. My body wouldn't let me. It was as if the shock had frozen every tear before it could form. I kept hearing her words on repeat. The best gift would be if you just died. A sentence shouldn't echo the way a gunshot does. But those words, they ricocheted through every corner of my mind. Every memory. Every sacrifice. I pulled into my driveway and sat still long after the engine stopped. My house felt darker than usual. Or maybe I was just seeing the world differently now, through a lens of betrayal I never expected from my own child. When I finally stepped inside, the silence hit me like a wave. Normally, I tried to fill my home with noise. I'd turn on the TV, even if I wasn't watching it. I'd hum to myself while cooking. I'd play old music from the 70s, songs my husband and I used to dance to when life felt simple and warm. But tonight, I didn't turn on anything. I just sank into the sofa, placing my purse beside me, and stared at the wall as if it could tell me why my daughter had turned into this. Into someone who saw me as a burden instead of a blessing. Someone who saw my death as a gift. The tears came then, slow at first, then uncontrollable. I buried my face in my hands and wept for the little girl I once knew. The girl who used to cuddle into my lap after bad dreams. The girl who used to run into my arms when I picked her up from school. The girl who used to say, "Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be just like you." Where had that little girl gone? And how had she grown into a woman capable of such cruelty? And the consequences, whatever they were, would be hers to face, not mine. The next morning, I awoke to the thud of something heavy hitting my front porch. At first, I thought it was a package, maybe something I'd ordered and forgotten about. But when I opened the door, I found a thick envelope taped directly onto my storm door, the kind that looked intentionally aggressive, bright red marker written in huge letters. Urgent. Open immediately. My stomach tightened. I didn't need to guess who it was from. I peeled it off and stepped inside, locking the door behind me before I even opened it. The weight inside the envelope was unmistakable: paperwork. A lot of it. I dumped everything onto the kitchen table. There were printed emails, copies of builder estimates, screenshots of text messages I never sent, and a handwritten note from Rebecca in her sharp, impatient handwriting. The note said, Mom. You are legally obligated to continue assisting us financially. You knowingly promised funds and we already built plans based on your word. If you refuse, we will pursue legal action. Rebecca I actually laughed out loud, an exhausted, bitter, almost disbelieving laugh. Legal action? Against me? For refusing to hand over more money? It was absurd. Ridiculous. But also exactly the kind of entitled threat someone like Rebecca would make when she realized control was slipping through her fingers. Still, seeing it written down, black ink on white paper, made something spike in my chest. Not fear. Not guilt. Anger. Real anger. For years, I had swallowed that anger. Pushed it down. Told myself that mothers don't get angry at their children, that mothers tolerate, forgive, endure. But I wasn't just a mother. I was a woman. A human being. And I had limits. I grabbed my phone and decided to call Mr. Larson, my attorney, even though it wasn't Monday yet. This situation couldn't wait. He picked up on the second ring. Mrs. Carter? Mr. Larson, my voice shook slightly. My daughter left legal threats at my door. I explained everything, her threats, the so-called legal obligation, and the blackmail attempt hidden beneath all the drama. He sighed, the kind of sigh an old attorney gives when he sees the same family drama play out again and again. Let me make this clear, he said firmly. She has absolutely no legal grounds to force you to give her money. None. Zero. A verbal promise is not a binding contract. She cannot sue you successfully for refusing to bankroll her lifestyle. Relief washed over me, but it wasn't the comforting kind. It was the kind that left you trembling, realizing how close you were to believing a lie. Can she come after my assets? I asked quietly. No, he said. Not unless she's listed on your accounts. Is she? No. Never. Good. Then consider her threats empty. However, he added slowly, I recommend you start documenting everything. Every message, every threat, every interaction. People who behave like this often escalate before they calm down. I closed my eyes. He was right. Rebecca was already spiraling. And I knew her well enough to know she wouldn't stop until she either got what she wanted or hit a wall so solid she had no choice but to face herself. Thank you, I said softly. Come in Monday, he reminded me. We'll update everything. And Mrs. Carter, you're doing the right thing. When he hung up, the silence felt different again, heavier, but also clarifying. I wasn't weak. I wasn't confused. I wasn't losing my mind. I was setting boundaries. And Rebecca hated boundaries the way a spoiled child hates vegetables around lunchtime. I took a walk to clear my head. The fall air was crisp, the leaves crunching under my shoes. Kids were riding bikes. Neighbors were raking their yards. The world looked so normal, and yet my life felt like it was turning inside out. Halfway down the block, I bumped into Margaret again. You look like you haven't slept, she said, concerned. I've slept, I replied, but my mind hasn't. She nodded knowingly. She tried something else, didn't she? I held up the red-lettered envelope. She threatened legal action. Margaret's eyes widened. Oh, that girl needs help. Real help. We walked together for a bit, and after a moment she spoke again. You know, she said carefully, some people don't understand boundaries until they face real consequences. You've always protected her from consequences. Her words stung because they were true. I know, I whispered. Margaret placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. This might be the first time she's being told no and having it mean something. I nodded. She's not handling it well. She won't, Margaret said, until she realizes you're serious. As we walked back toward my house, I felt a new emotion rising inside me, fear, but not of Rebecca. Fear of what might happen next. Because if Rebecca was willing to threaten me legally, what else might she do? That evening, as I was making tea, a car pulled into my driveway. I knew it before I even saw the plates. David. Her husband. He climbed out of the car with the slow, heavy movements of a man preparing for a confrontation. He walked up to my porch and knocked, not politely, not gently. 3 hard, deliberate knocks. I opened the door only slightly, leaving the chain on. "Mrs. Carter," he said, forcing a smile. "We need to talk." "No, David," I said. "We don't." He chuckled humorlessly. "Look, Rebecca's emotional right now. She said some things she shouldn't have. She told me the best gift would be if I died." His jaw tightened, but not with shock. With annoyance. Like this was an inconvenience, not a horror. "She didn't mean it," he said flatly. "Whether she meant it or not," I replied, "it was said. And I will not ignore it." He exhaled sharply, losing patience. "Okay, fine. She crossed a line. But you're still responsible for this funding. We're too far into the project to back out." "No," I said again. "I am not responsible for anything except my own life." He took a step closer, lowering his voice. "If you don't help us, we're going to lose the lot. The builder already started the foundation. We could lose everything." "You made commitments you couldn't afford," I said. "That is not my burden." His mask finally cracked. "Do you want your grandkids living in a trailer park?" he snapped. The manipulation was sharp, quick, and practiced. But I had become immune. "That's not what will happen," I said. "And you know it." He glared at me. "You're ruining this family." "No," I whispered. "I'm refusing to let you ruin me." Something dark flickered across his face. And suddenly, I knew Rebecca wasn't the only problem. David had been using me too. Maybe even encouraging her mindset. Maybe feeding it. "You'll regret this," he said, echoing Rebecca's earlier words. But unlike her, he didn't sound emotional. He sounded calculating. Dangerous. Before he could say anything else, I closed the door in his face. Slowly. Calmly. Then I locked every bolt. I stood there, breathing hard, while his footsteps retreated and the car engine revved. Only when the sound faded did I whisper to myself, "This isn't over." And deep down, I knew it. Rebecca's anger was becoming something else. Something uglier. And before this story ended, she would show just how far entitlement can push someone. When the money stops coming. For the next few days, my house felt too quiet. You'd think at my age I'd be used to silence, but this one wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like something pressing on my chest. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart skipped, hoping it was Rebecca apologizing, and fearing it wasn't. But none of the calls were from her. It was her husband, David. And every time I saw his name flash on the screen, guilt twisted in my stomach. He didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this. He didn't deserve to pay the price for Rebecca's cruelty or her words that still replayed in my mind. "The best gift would be if you just died." I couldn't hear it. I couldn't feel it. But I also couldn't shake the fear that maybe she truly hated me. On the 4th morning, David finally left a voice message. "Mom, please, we need to talk." Mom. He always called me that. Even after years of being treated like a stranger in my own daughter's home, he still respected me more than she did. I called him back. "David. What's going on?" His voice sounded tired, heartbroken. "It's Rebecca," he said. She's not okay." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" A long silence. "She told me what she said to you. About wishing you dead." He swallowed. "She's ashamed, but she'll never say that out loud." "Then why did she say it at all?" I whispered. "She didn't mean it," he insisted. "She just reacted. She's been under pressure at work, and with the medical bills." "Medical bills?" I cut in sharply. "What medical bills?" David froze. He realized he'd said too much. And just like that, the truth began unraveling. "She never told you?" he finally asked. "Told me what, David?" He exhaled deeply, defeated. "I think you should come over." When I arrived at their house, a house I paid for, it no longer felt like my daughter's home. It felt like a place where my love had been taken for granted and twisted into resentment. David opened the door gently, like he was afraid it would break. Inside, the atmosphere felt wrong, tense, thick, like walking into a storm. "Where is she?" I asked. In the bedroom. She won't talk today. That's fine, I said. You talk. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd once fed my baby girl macaroni and cheese and wiped sauce from her chin. The same table where she told me I was her best friend. Now it was just cold wood between us. Rebecca didn't want to worry you, David began. But she's been having some health issues. My breath froze. What kind of issues? He hesitated. Stress-related, emotional, mental. She's been feeling overwhelmed. The promotion she's been chasing hasn't come through. She's been comparing herself to her co-workers, feeling inadequate. He rubbed his temples. And she feels like she's constantly failing. As a mother. As a wife. As a daughter. That last word stabbed me. Failing, as a daughter? I repeated. He nodded. She thinks no matter what she does, it's not enough for you. I had to laugh. It wasn't humor, it was disbelief. Not enough for me. David, I gave her everything I had. I gave her the house. I gave her an education. I gave her love. I gave her years of my life. I know, he said softly. So how could she think that? David sighed. Because she's never stopped seeing herself as the 13-year-old who disappointed you the day she quit piano lessons. I blinked. That was decades ago. But she never let go, he said. She thinks you still see her as a failure. I sat back, stunned. All these years, all this resentment, because she thought she wasn't enough. But, David, I whispered, I always loved her. I always supported her. Even when she made the worst mistakes of her life. I know, he repeated. But Rebecca's mind doesn't always listen to logic. I looked away as tears filled my eyes. And the money? I asked. The funding. Why did she react like that? His face tightened. Because she depended on it. More than she admitted. The roof repair, the renovations, the business idea she was trying to start quietly. My eyes widened. Business idea? She told me she didn't need my help anymore. She didn't want to admit she failed. She didn't want you thinking she couldn't stand on her own. My heart cracked. So instead of asking, she wished I was dead. David swallowed hard. She regretted it immediately. But, she doubled down out of pride. Pride. My daughter's biggest enemy. I felt my anger fading and something else replacing it, something more painful. Grief. Not for myself. For her. David, I said quietly, why didn't she come talk to me? She was afraid, he said. Afraid you'd say I told you so. Afraid you'd see her falling apart. I covered my mouth to keep from sobbing. I never wanted my daughter afraid of me. Never. Before I could speak, a soft voice floated from the hallway. Mom. It was Rebecca. She stood there in pajamas, her hair messy, her eyes red and swollen. She looked nothing like the confident, sharp-tongued woman who had told me she wished I'd die. She looked like a scared little girl. Mom, she whispered again, I'm sorry. But not the kind of sorry someone says after a minor mistake. It was the kind someone says when they've shattered something fragile, something they're terrified can't be repaired, and that's when I realized. This wasn't just a fight. This was a breaking point. For both of us. And everything was about to change. For a moment, the world felt completely still. Rebecca stood in the hallway, clinging to the doorframe like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her voice trembled, her lips quivered, and her eyes, those same hazel eyes she'd had since she was a baby, were filled with something I hadn't seen in years. Fear. Shame. Regret. But also, hope. The hope that maybe, just maybe, I hadn't stopped loving her. Mom, she whispered again, her voice cracking. Please, don't leave. David looked at me, eyes pleading. I swallowed hard. I'm not leaving, I said gently. Not until we talk. Rebecca's shoulders dropped in relief, and she sank onto the couch like her legs could no longer support her. I walked slowly toward her, not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of the heaviness of years of unspoken hurt. When I reached her, she tried to speak, but the words tangled in her throat. David quietly excused himself to the kitchen, giving us space. For a long moment, it was just the two of us. Mother and daughter. 2 stubborn women with too many scars between them. Rebecca, I said softly. You hurt me. Her face crumpled. I know, she whispered. I know, Mom, and I'm so sorry. I was horrible. I was cruel. I didn't mean it. I swear I didn't mean it. I sat beside her, leaving just enough space that she had to reach for me. And she did. She grabbed my hands like she was drowning. I didn't want you to die, she choked out. I was angry, and overwhelmed, and scared. I didn't know how to ask for help without feeling like a failure. Her words hit me right in the heart. You could have told me, I whispered. I would have helped you. I always have. But that's the problem, she cried. You've helped me my whole life. Every time I mess up, you fix it. And instead of being grateful, I feel like a child. Like I never became the woman you hoped I'd be. I felt a lump in my throat. I never said you weren't enough. You didn't have to say it, she said. I felt it. Every time I struggled. Every time I messed up. Every time life knocked me down. I felt like I disappointed you. My eyes filled with tears. Rebecca. I'm your mother. I'm supposed to help. She nodded slowly. But sometimes, it made me feel weak. We sat there in painful silence. Finally, I exhaled. And the funding? I asked quietly. Is that why you reacted that way? Because you thought needing my help made you a failure? She hesitated, then nodded. It wasn't just the money, Mom. It was what the money represented. I felt trapped. Dependent. She looked away. When you said you couldn't keep supporting us, I felt like the ground fell out from under me. Not because I wanted your money, but because I felt like you were giving up on me. Giving up on her. God, that hurt. I cancelled the funding, I said slowly, because you wished me dead, not because I wanted to abandon you. She buried her face in her hands. I know, and the moment I said it, I wished I could rip the words out of the air. I hate myself for it. My anger softened. Not disappeared, but softened. Because now I understood. She wasn't cruel. She was broken. She wasn't hateful. She was drowning. I scooted closer and gently lifted her chin. Rebecca, I said softly, you will always be enough for me. You don't have to prove anything. Not your success, not your independence, not your strength. You're my child. Her tears slid down her cheeks. I still need you, Mom, she whispered. And needing you makes me feel like a burden. I squeezed her hands. You've never been a burden. She swallowed. I don't want your money anymore, she said shakily. I mean, I do need help, but not like before. I need you. I miss you. I miss us. My heart warmed and ached at the same time. Then let me help you, I whispered. Not with money, but with love. With time. With support. She leaned into my shoulder, crying quietly. After a while, David returned from the kitchen. Can I say something? He asked gently. Rebecca and I nodded. He sat across from us, his expression one of raw honesty. I've watched both of you hurt for years, he said. You both love each other more than anything, but neither of you knows how to say it without feeling weak. He was right. My daughter and I were mirror images in the worst ways. And Rebecca, he continued, you can't keep pretending everything is fine. You need to be honest with her, with me, with yourself. She sniffled. I know. And Mom, he said, turning to me, you can't keep protecting her so much that she never learns how strong she actually is. That part stung. But it was true. I had spent years swooping in to fix everything, thinking I was helping, when really, I might have been holding her back. Rebecca reached for my hand again. Mom, can we start over? She asked quietly. Not with money. Not with guilt. Just, start over? I nodded, tears falling freely. Yes, I whispered. We can. But deep inside, something else stirred. A question. A fear. If she had hidden this much from me, the stress, the medical problems, the failed business, the shame, what else wasn't she telling me? And I was about to find out. Because the truth, the whole truth, was far darker than I ever expected. Rebecca and I sat together on the couch long after the tears stopped. Long after the apologies settled into the air like dust. Long after David returned to the other room to give us space again. It should have felt peaceful. But it didn't. Something was still wrong. Something Rebecca wasn't saying. Something David seemed terrified I would discover. Her apology was real. That much I knew. But apologies don't erase the weight behind the words she had thrown at me. The best gift would be if you just died. People don't say things like that unless they're carrying something so heavy, so toxic, it spills out uncontrollably. I watched my daughter quietly as she twisted her sleeves between her fingers, avoiding eye contact. That was her tell, she only did that when she was hiding something. Rebecca, I said softly, there's more you haven't told me. Her shoulders tensed immediately. David stepped back into the room at that exact moment, almost as if he'd been listening and waiting. He froze when he heard my words. His eyes gave it away. He knew. Mom, Rebecca whispered, please. Let's just focus on today. On moving forward. No, I said calmly but firmly. Moving forward requires honesty. She swallowed hard, and I could see the battle in her face. Fear versus truth. Shame versus love. Guilt versus desperation. Rebecca, I continued gently, I can't help you if you keep hiding things. Her lips trembled. Her eyes glistened. I don't want to disappoint you again, she whispered. You won't, I said. Not by telling the truth. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then another. And another. Finally, she broke. Mom, she choked out, I'm in trouble. My stomach twisted. What kind of trouble? I asked softly. She looked at David. His jaw was clenched, like he was holding back an avalanche. Tell her, he said gently. Rebecca nodded, wiping her eyes. It started last year, she began. My hours at the firm were cut, but I didn't want anyone to know. I was terrified of looking weak, embarrassed, like I couldn't hold my own. She paused, voice cracking. So instead of telling you, or David, or anyone, I tried to start a side business. I inhaled sharply. The business you tried to do, but didn't tell me about? She nodded. Yeah. I poured everything into it. And when it started failing, I panicked. I took out loans. Small ones at first. My heart raced. How small? She hesitated. Mom, she whispered, I owe $62,000. The room felt ice cold. I blinked slowly, trying to process her words. 62,000? I repeated. She nodded again, crying harder now. David lowered his head into his hands. And the lenders? I asked quietly. Are they legitimate? She closed her eyes. No, she whispered. They're private lenders. My heart dropped. Private lenders didn't mean banks. Private lenders meant danger, harassment, threats, pressure. Those weren't people you owed money to. Those were people you ran from. Oh, Rebecca, I whispered, voice trembling. I didn't want you to know, she sobbed. You already paid for so much, my house, my college debt, the wedding. I couldn't come to you again like a child begging for help. I squeezed her hand. You should have told me. I was ashamed, she whispered. And when you said you couldn't keep helping, I panicked. I lashed out. I said the most disgusting thing I've ever said in my life. I hated myself immediately. And when you cut the funding, the lender started calling more. Showing up more. I froze. Showing up? Rebecca nodded slowly. They came to our house last week. David finally spoke, his voice strained. They threatened her, Mom. They told her if she didn't pay at least 2 installments soon, they'd make things difficult. That's why she snapped. That's why she said what she said. It wasn't about you. It was fear. I covered my mouth, horrified. You should have called the police, I whispered. We can't, David said bluntly. There's no official documentation. Everything is off the books. If we go to the police, it could get worse. I stared at my daughter, my once cheerful, strong-willed Rebecca, now broken down, trembling, terrified. She looked so small. So fragile. Why didn't you come to me? I whispered again. Because you've already sacrificed so much, she cried. I felt like I was sucking the life out of you. I thought it was better if you hated me than if you saw me like this. Her words tore through me. I grabbed her hands tightly. Rebecca, I said through tears, you are my daughter. My child. There is nothing you could ever do that would make me stop loving you. She sobbed harder. And the thing you said, I whispered, you said it because you were terrified. Not because you meant it. She nodded, burying her face in her hands. I didn't mean it, Mom. I swear. I said it because I felt cornered. Not because I wanted you gone. Not ever. I leaned forward and wrapped my arms around her. She collapsed into me, crying like she did when she was 8 and scraped her knee on the driveway. Only this wound was deeper. And the fix was harder. David cleared his throat. There's more, he said softly. Rebecca stiffened. I looked at him, fear creeping into my spine. More? He nodded grimly. The lender gave us an ultimatum, David said. We have 1 week to pay the first $15,000, or they'll come back. I felt the blood drain from my face. 1 week. $15,000. And a threat behind it. Rebecca clung to me, shaking. Mom. I'm scared, she whispered. Really scared. I pulled her closer, my heart pounding. I had spent my whole life protecting this child. And now the danger wasn't emotional. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was real. Physical. Immediate. And suddenly the question wasn't whether I'd cancelled the funding. The question was whether I could save her. Before it was too late. I held Rebecca tightly, her tears soaking into my shoulder. The house was quiet except for her shaking breaths, but inside my mind, everything was loud. Rushing, pounding, spiraling. My daughter was in danger. Real danger. And she had been facing it alone. A mother's worst nightmare. I pulled back slowly and cupped her face in my hands. Rebecca, I whispered, look at me. She did, her eyes red and swollen. You will not face this alone. Not anymore. She flinched. Mom. I don't want your savings. I don't want your money. You already said you can't keep supporting me. I don't want to take from you again. These aren't the kind of people you negotiate with, I said firmly. You don't hide from them. You don't try to outsmart them. You get help. Real help. Help from who? She whispered hopelessly. Not the police. Not the bank. Not the firm. Who else is there? I took a deep breath. Me. David stood up instantly. Mom, no. You don't understand how serious. I understand perfectly, I cut in. Someone is threatening my daughter. That is serious. And I'm not sitting by while she's terrified to sleep in her own home. Rebecca grabbed my wrist. Mom, please. You could get hurt. I squeezed her hand. Sweetheart. I survived 40 years of night shifts, violent patients, emergencies, and a pandemic. I'm not scared of some low-level thugs with cheap suits and bad threats. David exhaled, torn between relief and worry. But the money, he said quietly. $15,000 in 1 week, that's not a small amount. I know, I said softly. But I have one option left. They stared at me, confused. I sighed. I wasn't going to tell you this, because I know how you both get when it comes to my money, but I still have a retirement certificate. A fixed fund. I was saving it for emergencies. Rebecca's eyes filled with fear. No. No, Mom. This is not your emergency. This is my mess. My consequence. Your emergency is my emergency, I said. That's how motherhood works. She shook her head violently. I won't let you. I already drained you once. I already made you use your life savings for my house, my wedding, my school. You didn't make me, I said firmly. I chose it. Because you're my child. She sobbed again, collapsing into my lap. I don't deserve you, she whispered. I stroked her hair gently. You don't have to deserve me. You're my daughter. That's all. But money wasn't the only problem. The lender. The threats. The fear. That had to be dealt with too. David sat across from me, his face stiff with determination. "We have to tell someone," I said. "Someone who can actually help." Rebecca wiped her eyes. "I don't want them to hurt you. Or come after Ethan." Ethan. My grandson. Her son. 8 years old with freckles and a smile that melted my heart. That lit a fire inside me. "Nobody is coming near that child," I said, voice like steel. "Nobody." David took a breath. "There is one person," he said. "Someone who might be able to give us advice. My cousin, Mark. He's a lawyer, well, more like a fixer. He handles disputes. Tough disputes." Rebecca looked alarmed. "Mark. I thought we said we wouldn't involve him." "Becky," he said gently, "we're past that." I nodded. "Call him," I said. "Now." David hesitated only a second before dialing. Mark arrived 2 hours later. He looked nothing like a lawyer. More like a biker who moonlighted as a detective. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a trimmed beard and eyes that didn't miss a thing. He shook my hand firmly. "Mrs. Hale," he said. "I heard you have a problem." I nodded. "My daughter owes money to private lenders." He nodded slowly. "And I'm guessing they aren't the polite, friendly type." Rebecca let out a humorless laugh. "No. They aren't." Mark sat down. "Tell me everything." Rebecca explained, from the failed business to the loan to the threats. Mark listened carefully, then leaned forward. "These guys don't want trouble," he said. "They want money. But they also don't want police involved. That gives you leverage." David frowned. "But we don't have official paperwork. No contracts." Mark shrugged. "The lack of paperwork is exactly why they need to scare you into paying. They have no legal claim. Only intimidation." I felt a flicker of hope. "So what do we do?" I asked. Mark looked directly at Rebecca. "You pay the first installment to get them off your back. But before you pay the second, we negotiate." "Negotiate?" Rebecca whispered. "Yes," he said. "I'll talk to them myself. They won't say no to me." David looked at him sharply. "You mean intimidate them?" Mark smiled slightly. "I'll just remind them how fragile their side of the deal is." Rebecca shivered. I wasn't sure if Mark's confidence comforted me or frightened me, but at that point, any plan was better than fear and silence. For the next 3 days, I barely slept. I withdrew the $15,000. The teller asked me 3 times if I was sure I wanted to pull from my retirement. "Yes," I said every time, steady. I wasn't going to watch my daughter drown. I wasn't going to let my grandson grow up in fear. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let some menacing lender think he could terrorize my family. On the 4th day, Rebecca, David, and Mark met the lender in a public place, a busy parking lot with cameras. Mark kept the meeting short. He handed over the money. He made eye contact that could peel paint. And he said a single sentence. "You will not come to this family's house again." The lender tried to scoff, but I saw his hand tremble. Mark had that effect. They walked away without incident. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. That night, Rebecca and I sat on her back porch watching the sky turn orange and then deep purple. "Mom," she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart. Why did you still help me? After what I said?" I took her hand. "Because love is louder than pain," I said. "And motherhood doesn't end when your child hurts you. It ends when you decide to stop loving." And I never stopped. She leaned her head on my shoulder. "Thank you for not giving up on me." I kissed her forehead. "I never will." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, "I'm going to pay you back. Every dollar. No more hiding. No more shame. I'm done letting fear run my life." I smiled. That's all I ever wanted. Rebecca wasn't perfect. Neither was I. But that night, for the first time in years, I felt something between us that had been lost. Trust. Understanding. Healing. A new beginning. And a promise. From her. From me. From all of us. That the cycle of fear, guilt, money, and silence was ending here. Because no matter how broken things became, a mother's love remains the strongest currency in the world. Thanks for watching. If you love this story, hit the subscribe button. Show love by like my videos and tell me about your thoughts in comment section.